My name's Ethan Miller. I'm 42 years old, and up until a few months ago, I thought my life was stable. Not perfect, not some picture book romance, but steady in that quiet way you stop questioning. I believed in the calm. I thought that meant everything was fine. But now I know, sometimes silence doesn't mean peace. Sometimes it means rot. My wife Jenna and I had been married for 11 years. She's always been kind of ethereal. A painter. Soft-spoken, dreamy, sensitive, but with this surprising stubborn streak that you don't notice until it's already pushed you aside. She could spend an hour staring at clouds, then snap if you asked what was for dinner. I used to think it was charming. Now I'm not sure I ever truly got her. The moment everything changed didn't come during a fight. No yelling, no slammed doors. It was a Sunday morning. I was out on the back porch with my coffee, watching some birds I couldn't name, feeling the kind of peace that's too quiet to trust. Then she came out in her robe, leaned on the doorframe, didn't look at me, and said real calm, "I think I need some space." She didn't even glance my way. Just stared at the lawn like the grass was about to answer some question I never even knew she'd asked. I froze. My hand clenched around that coffee mug so tight I thought it might crack. I didn't know what to say, probably because deep down, I already knew something had been off for a long time. But I'd been hoping, no begging silently, that I was imagining it. After a pause that felt like an entire winter passing through me, I said, "Okay." She blinked then, finally looked at me like my response surprised her. "You're not mad." "I'm just trying to understand what you mean," I said carefully. "Like, space as in a break? Or just less pressure?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Just, not so much routine." That was it. No real answer. But then again, nothing between us had been clear for a while. I'd gotten used to her long hours in the studio, the silence at dinner, the way she watched TV like she was somewhere else. But hearing her say she wanted distance, it cracked something that had already been hanging by threads. And I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't even ask questions. Maybe some part of me thought that if I gave her what she asked for, she might stay. So I pulled back. I stopped texting her during lunch. Didn't kiss her goodnight. I didn't reach for her when she stayed late downtown. I even started running errands just to be out of the house more. And at first, she seemed relieved. Smiled a little more. Slept better. Didn't flinch when I didn't touch her. But then 2 weeks later, Thursday night, I came home late from helping my cousin move, and there she was. Sitting on the stairs, arms crossed, not angry, just off. "You've been distant," she said. I almost laughed. Not in a mean way. Just out of disbelief. "You asked for space, Jenna." She frowned, looked lost for a second. "I didn't mean this much." I just nodded. "I gave you what you said you needed." And those exact words, were like a mirror shoved in her face. She cracked. She started asking where I'd been, who I was with, why I was late. She began glancing at my phone over my shoulder, then pretending she hadn't. She leaned closer to me in bed again, almost like she was testing whether I'd pull away. But here's the thing, by that point, something inside me had shifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't smug. I didn't feel like I'd won. I just felt empty. Like I'd stepped out of the marriage, but left a hollow version of myself still sitting there, smiling politely. I still loved her. But I couldn't tell what kind of love it was anymore. Was it routine? Fear? Guilt? Or just the ghost of something that used to be real but had nowhere left to live? Then came the letter. It wasn't a text. Not even an email. Just a folded note tucked under her sketchbook with my name written on it in her soft, looping handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it. Moved it around. Put it in a drawer. But I could feel it, humming in the back of my mind like it had answers to questions I hadn't dared ask. And all night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I got up and just started walking laps around the house. The same house that once felt warm, now echoing with questions I couldn't speak out loud. Questions like, when did we stop being honest? Did she write that letter before or after she asked for space? Is there someone else? Am I someone else? I stood outside our bedroom door, watching her sleep through the crack, and it hit me how far apart we drifted. Not in some explosive, dramatic way, but in the slow, cold fade. Like friends who used to know each other's hearts and then one day, don't. It turns out, the worst thing in a marriage isn't anger. It's absence. I finally opened that letter the next morning. I'd been standing in the kitchen, just staring at her empty coffee mug like it might explain something to me. The letter was short, just 2 paragraphs, carefully written like every word had been debated. She didn't confess to cheating. No big betrayal. But the hurt still hit deep. She wrote that she didn't recognize herself anymore. That life had started to feel like someone else's script, and she couldn't find the part she was supposed to play. She missed the version of herself that used to disappear into a canvas for hours, not the one stuck to laundry schedules and grocery runs. She said she felt lonely, not because I didn't love her, she knew I did, but because she felt invisible. And that word, invisible, hit harder than anything else she could have written. Because, whether I wanted to admit it or not, I felt the exact same way. I just never said it. We'd been lying next to each other for years, both of us silently screaming to be seen, and somehow neither of us noticed. Instead of working through it, we retreated inward, like strangers trying not to admit they once knew each other's favorite songs by heart. That night, I didn't bring up the letter. She went about her evening like nothing had happened, cooked dinner, watched TV, folded laundry like always. And I didn't press. I didn't ask what she wanted from me now. I just watched. There was a shift, though. She started lingering in the hall when I passed by. Standing a little too close. Smiling that soft kind of smile you give someone when you're not sure if you're hoping, or apologizing. At dinner, she twisted her napkin nervously and kept sneaking glances at me, like she was trying to decode my silence. But I wasn't being cold. I was just waiting. Waiting for her to reach out, not with a letter, not with words, but with something real. Something honest. I'd done the heavy lifting before, filled in the blanks, carried the emotional weight. If she wanted to bridge the distance now, it had to come from her. The next morning, I found something strange in the laundry basket. A shirt of mine I hadn't worn in forever. It still smelled like the old cologne I used to wear when we were dating. She'd always said it reminded her of long drives and stupid inside jokes we used to laugh at until our cheeks hurt. I stood there for a long time, holding that shirt. I couldn't tell if she'd tossed it in by accident or on purpose. Maybe it was her way of saying she didn't want to give up, not out loud, not directly, but in the only way she knew how. But the weird part? I wasn't sure I knew how to come back. Later that week, she made pancakes, blueberry ones, the kind I like. No grand gesture. She didn't even say anything. Just slid the plate in front of me like it was any other Saturday morning. Then she sat across the table, pretending to scroll on her phone, but I could tell she was watching my reaction. It was good. But food wasn't what I was starving for. It's a strange feeling, realizing the person across from you is trying to reconnect but doesn't know how. And the truth is, maybe I didn't either. That scared me more than any letter or late-night confession ever could. Later that day, I told her I was going to the garage to organize some old gear. But really, I just needed to breathe. I needed space. The irony wasn't lost on me. She had asked for space, and now I was the one needing it. The garage smelled like dust and memories. I found our old camping thermos from our honeymoon in Asheville, faded silver, a peeling sticker. I sat with it for a while, remembering how she used to lean into my arm when we drank cocoa under the stars. How she'd laugh at absolutely nothing just because we were happy and free. Then I remembered the way she flinched a few weeks ago when I reached for her hand on the couch. And it hit me, time doesn't just change people. It wears them down. Makes them forget how to reach for each other. I stayed in that garage for over an hour. She never came looking. Maybe she thought I needed space too. Or maybe she was afraid of what she might find if she did. That night, she came into the bedroom with her hair still damp from the shower, no makeup, wearing one of her old oversized tees. She hadn't looked like that around me in a long time, like herself, unfiltered, not trying to present anything. Just her. I could feel it, she wanted to say something. She hovered near the dresser, folding the same sweater twice, like her hands needed something to do while her brain caught up. All she said was, "You going to bed?" "Soon," I answered. She hesitated in the doorway. "You take longer now." I didn't say anything. Not to be cold, but because I didn't know what words were supposed to fix what had unraveled between us. I wasn't punishing her, I was just trying to figure out what was left. What was still real, and what we were holding on to simply because it was familiar. When she left the room, I noticed something sitting on my nightstand. A small square of watercolor paper, her signature medium. Folded neatly. My name written on it in the same soft handwriting she used in love notes, back when she used to slip them into my coat pockets before big meetings. I opened it. It said, "Would you go on a walk with me tomorrow?" That was it. No apology. No big explanation. Just a quiet question. And weirdly, it hit harder than the letter had. Because in that tiny, almost shy sentence, I saw something I hadn't seen in months, a piece of the woman I married. Still there. Still searching for me. The question that kept bouncing around in my head though, was I still where she left me? We didn't talk about the note that night or the next morning. But it was there. Like a hum underneath everything we said and did. When I walked into the kitchen the next day, she was already waiting by the door. Old windbreaker, sneakers tied, like she was hoping I'd say yes but didn't want to ask again. She looked at me, held my gaze just long enough for me to feel the weight of it. I nodded. She smiled, small, uncertain but real. Like hope cost her something. We started down the trail behind our neighborhood. The same one we used to walk when we first moved in. It winds behind the tennis courts, dips near a creek, then curves under a canopy of trees that bloom like gold in spring. But it was fall now. Late October. Cold. The leaves had already fallen, crunching under our feet with every step. A fitting backdrop, honestly. Two people trying to sort through a mess of emotions while everything around them was dying and beautiful at the same time. We didn't talk for the first 15 minutes. Just walked. She stared at the trees. The sky. The space between us. And I watched her, really watched her, like I was trying to see who she was now. Not the Jenna from a decade ago, but the woman beside me. I used to know every little thing about her. Now, I wasn't even sure what kind of smile she wore when she wasn't faking it. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "You used to walk faster." I glanced at her. "You used to walk closer." She looked down. A few more steps of silence. Then she said, barely above a whisper, "I never stopped caring. Even when I asked for space. I just didn't know how to explain what I was feeling." I didn't jump in with reassurance. I didn't say I know. I just replied, "You didn't try." Not in anger. Just truth. Honest, quiet truth. She nodded. I was scared. It felt easier to drift than to say the wrong thing. And I got that. Maybe for the first time, I really got it. Drifting doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you human. But that drift, it still costs you something. We stopped at an old bench by the stream. It was weathered now, cracked at the edges. I used to ask her hypothetical questions here. Stuff like, if you could live anywhere, where would you go? Or, if you could only keep 3 memories, which would you choose? She never gave direct answers back then. That was her thing. Always responding with a soft smile and another question of her own. But this time she sat down and asked me something I never expected. If you could go back, would you still marry me? She didn't look at me when she asked it. She was bracing herself. I looked at her for a long time. Really looked. And I said, only if we made a promise. That we wouldn't disappear on each other. Not when life got heavy. Not when things got routine. Not when silence started to feel easier than honesty. Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. I didn't mean to disappear, she said quietly. I know, I replied. And I did know. That was the hardest part. She didn't leave with intention, she just faded. And somewhere in that time, I started fading too. And once you learn how to live without someone, it's hard to remember how to live with them again. As we walked back, she slowly reached for my hand. I let her. It didn't feel like it used to. But it didn't feel wrong either. That night, we lay in bed, facing each other in the dark. I couldn't sleep. I don't think she could either. Her voice was barely a whisper. Are we okay? And for the first time, I didn't know how to answer. I think we're trying, I said eventually. That counts for something. She moved in closer, rested her head against my chest like she used to. But even then, something felt different. Not in a bad way, not cold. Just unfamiliar. Like we were sharing the same bed, but not the same rhythm. The days that followed were strange, not heavy with tension, but full of cautious energy. Like we were both moving through the same house, hoping not to bump into old versions of ourselves. Jenna started putting in effort, and I could tell. She'd stay at the dinner table longer, trying to start conversations that used to come easy. She bought my favorite coffee again. She rearranged the bookshelf the way I used to keep it. One night she came home early from her studio. Twice, actually. Cooked dinner. Set candles. As if creating ambience might help bridge the distance between us. And part of me appreciated it, genuinely. I saw she was trying. But the thing people never really talk about when you're rebuilding something emotionally fractured is this: you don't get to just pick up where you left off. It's not like pressing play on a paused movie. You come back and find your seat's been moved. The plot's shifted. You don't know your lines anymore, and neither does the person next to you. That's how it felt. Her laugh had changed, softer, like she was holding back. Her hugs felt more like quiet questions. Her kisses felt like rituals we remembered, not moments we were living. One night, I sat in the driveway for 20 minutes before coming inside. Not because I didn't want to see her, but because I didn't know how to see her anymore. The house still smelled like her shampoo. Her artwork still lined the walls. Our dog still came running when I pulled up. But emotionally, something was rewired. We didn't sleep close anymore. We didn't talk about it, it just happened. My side. Her side. The middle untouched. It wasn't a rejection, just a quiet routine that grew roots without either of us noticing. And then one morning I realized, it had been weeks since I kissed her forehead. Months since I held her just because. It doesn't break you all at once. It chips away in these invisible little ways. One evening, she asked if I wanted to go away for the weekend. Just the two of us. Get out of town. Get out of our heads. I said maybe. She tried to hide the disappointment. But I saw it. And worse, I felt something in myself that scared me. Hesitation. Not fear. Not avoidance. Just this cold, honest awareness that I'd changed. That going back to the way things used to be might mean pretending I hadn't. That weekend, I went on a long walk by myself. Left my phone on the kitchen counter and just walked until the neighborhood faded behind me. I passed the park where we used to take our goddaughter. The swings were empty, the leaves curled on the edges of the pavement. I sat on the same bench where I used to help her tie her shoes, braid her hair, listen to Jenna laugh as she watched us. And that's where the question hit me. If she had never asked for space, would we still be here like this? But then came the heavier one. If she hadn't pulled away, would I have ever realized how far I'd already drifted? Because sometimes, someone walking away doesn't shatter you. Sometimes it just reveals that you were already broken. That night, when I got back from the walk, she was waiting for me at the top of the stairs. She didn't ask where I'd been. Didn't raise her voice. Didn't accuse me of anything. She just looked at me with these wide, tired eyes and said, "Are you still in this?" And I didn't answer. Not because I didn't care, but because I honestly didn't know if saying yes would be for her sake, or mine. It's strange, how quiet love becomes when it starts to fade. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table that night, like two coworkers trying to make small talk. She'd made pasta. Dimmed the lights. Even lit a candle like it might spark something old and familiar between us. The flame flickered across her face, and for a moment, she looked younger, like the woman I used to race back home to. She twirled the spaghetti slowly, with the kind of careful focus you give when you're trying not to break in front of someone. She was trying. I saw it in all the small ways that most people wouldn't notice. In her voice when she asked how work was. In the fresh sweatshirt she folded and left on my side of the bed. In the way she lingered a little longer every time she walked past me in the hallway. But what she didn't know was, by the time she asked for space, I had already started building walls of my own. I didn't even realize I was doing it until it was too late to explain why. And now, every moment between us felt loaded. Every silence sounded like a question we didn't want to ask out loud. That night, I told her I was thinking about getting away for a few days. Alone. She paused mid-bite. "Okay," she said. That okay, man, that hit hard. Not because it was dramatic, but because it sounded like something she'd already rehearsed in her head. Like she'd already pictured this moment and decided to go with the quiet route. I didn't pack a lot. Just enough. I wasn't trying to make a point. I wasn't storming out. I just needed to breathe. Away from the version of myself that had become a background extra in my own marriage. The cabin I rented was a couple hours north. Not too far, but far enough to feel like somewhere else. It rained most of the second day. That soft, misty kind of rain that disappears into your thoughts if you sit still long enough. I curled up by the window with a blanket and pulled out my old journal, the one I hadn't touched in years. Back when I used to write dreams and random thoughts just to hear my own mind again. Pages filled with plans. Trips Jenna and I never took. Businesses I never started. Kids we always said we'd have someday. But time doesn't wait for someday. Time is fast. Quiet. Unforgiving in how it replaces dreams with routines. The next morning, I checked my phone for the first time in a while. 3 messages from Jenna. None of them dramatic. No guilt trips. Just simple. Are you okay? Do you want me to give you more time? I miss you. The old me would have called her right then. Would have apologized for everything. Would have driven back before she could send a 4th message. But the man sitting in that cabin, he needed more than reconciliation. He needed clarity. He needed to know if what we had left was love, or just the comfort of each other's presence. That evening, I wrote back. I'm still thinking. I'm not done. But I need to know we're not just trying to rebuild something familiar. I need to know we're both still alive in this. Not just rearranging the pieces of something that already faded. I hit send. Then I turned my phone off. Poured myself some tea. Pulled the blanket tighter. And for the first time in months, I cried. Not for her. Not even for us. But because I realized just how long I'd been quietly breaking. And never noticed until the silence was too loud to ignore. The drive back felt longer than the drive up. Not because of traffic. Not because of weather. But because of the space between who I'd been when I left and who I was returning as. I pulled into the driveway and just sat there, watching the house like it belonged to someone else. Everything looked the same. Her shoes by the door. The porch light on. The scent of lavender cleaner faint in the air when I opened the door. She was sitting at the kitchen table, staring out the window. Didn't turn when I came in. Didn't have to. We'd had more conversations in silence than with words by then. I didn't think you'd be back so soon, she said quietly. I don't know what to do with any of this, I told her. And I meant it. She turned to face me then. And I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't angry. Wasn't hopeful either. Just tired. Not from lack of sleep, but from carrying the weight of uncertainty for too long. I didn't know if you'd come back at all, she said. And it hit me that she wasn't waiting for me to fix things. She wasn't holding out for a magic solution. She was already halfway to accepting that this might be it. That maybe we'd run out of road. I dropped my bag by the door and leaned against the wall, staring at her like I was seeing her for the first time. Not the woman I met in my 20s, not the one I'd loved through birthdays and boring Tuesdays, but the version sitting here now. Bruised by time. Still holding on, even if she didn't know why. I took a slow breath. I don't want to walk away, I said. The words just slipped out. No plan. No script. Just truth. Her eyes softened, but she didn't speak. She didn't need to. I could read it in her silence. The fear, the hope, the 1,000 quiet ways she'd been asking the same question I had. What now? I sat across from her. What are we even doing, Jenna? I asked. What do we do now? She didn't flinch. Didn't dodge it like she used to. I don't know, Ethan, she said. I just know I don't want to stop trying to figure it out. And right then, something in me cracked, but not in a bad way. It was like letting go of this idea that we had to get back to before. Maybe we never would. But maybe we didn't have to. I reached for her hand. She let me take it. And that small act, after everything, felt huge. I don't know if we can fix everything, I told her. But I don't want to stop figuring it out with you. She nodded, slow and quiet. Me neither. And in that moment, I understood, this wasn't about patching up something broken. It was about recognizing the cracks, not hiding them. About building something different with the pieces we still had. The next morning felt lighter. Not fixed. Just less heavy. We woke up around the same time, both of us closer to the middle of the bed than usual. Her hand was near mine, barely touching, and I didn't pull away. We didn't make promises. Didn't pretend everything would go back to normal. We just let the moment breathe. That weekend, we did something we hadn't done in years. We got in the car and drove. No plan. No destination. Just out. We ended up in a small town with a dusty diner, paper menus, and pies on display behind the counter. We ate. We laughed, not because everything was healed, but because for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like we were pretending. On the drive home, she reached over and turned down the music. "I think we forgot how to enjoy each other," she said. I nodded. And now we're remembering. That night, she left a note on my pillow. Just one line, scribbled in the same old handwriting that used to write "I love you" on birthday cards. "Thanks for not giving up." I kept it. Folded it into the back of my journal from the cabin. I haven't written in it since. Not yet. I think I'm waiting. Not for something dramatic. Just for more of these small signs that we're choosing each other again. Day by day. A few weeks later, we started a new tradition. Sunday morning walks. No phones. No distractions. Just time. Our time. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we just walk in silence. But the difference now? We're walking side by side. By choice. And after everything we've been through, that's more than enough.